Sebastian just said, we merged one of the shortcode PRs, and that PR included a library that Sebastian's written for called Shortcodes. So this is the repo for it here. And this demo will be about kind of taking what we can do with that library a little bit further and implementing some shortcodes in the edit in the admin area. To give us something a little bit like what we can see in WordPress, where they've got pop-ups with the list of available shortcodes and other features. So I've been working towards that. The first page I'll show you is probably a little pop-up feature. So when you're now in an HTML editor, you can get a little pop-up here where you have a list of the available shortcodes. This particular one includes some arguments with it. So you could specify a size on this particular one as well. And some of the other kind of hints, bits and pieces. I'll demo that one later. This one is interesting because it will just style some text. I still have to decide about the capitalization by wrapping a span around it with a particular class that I've set. So if we publish this page, then we can view it here. And we have our ipsum, that's the small ipsum, that's a shortcode that I'll demo how I've overwritten it. Larger ipsum, a piece of text which is just wrapped in a span with a text primary class, and a piece of text that's written in wrapped in a secondary class. So we have that. That's the little pop-up. It's available in a way that we can add it to the Trumbullweg editor, that we can add it just to any kind of text area or input. The same thing here, you just get a little pop-up. You can either cancel it or accept it. So what we also have is the ability to actually write these shortcodes in the admin. So we can write them in Liquid. And this is, for example, the primary one, which is just able to test. This is just there's some options on where you can place the content in a shortcode, whether you place it and as an argument, or whether you place it in the whole code or the content area of the code. And this just returns the content value of the value wrapped in a span. So quite nice and simple. So the templates themselves you can write with Liquid, and they're saved in the admin. And one of the features that I added, I'll just go to some code for a second here. What I've done here is just I've registered a shortcode in code. It's the bold shortcode, which does this and wraps things in an EM tag. But then what I've done in here is I've replaced that template with another bold one, which in this particular case changes the style to wrap it in an I. Just as an example of how we can potentially override ones that have been written in code. So we've got a discovery service, which I'll go to the code for a second here, which when you're registering the shortcode allows you to describe it. I'm not sure if the idea of having a hint is a good idea, because we will have to think about localization on it as well, potentially. This is what the shortcode will return when you actually select it from an editor. So you might have it returning something completely different. For example, just as a default. And I also introduced the concept of categories, and I'll talk a little bit more about why I thought they might be useful. We've talked a little bit about shortcodes potentially being a replacement for Orchard One tokens, and I got up Orchard One the other day, and I just went through all the tokens that we have kind of out of the box. I was like, yeah, I remember this. We've got a lot of them. And you scroll down this little list, and then you scroll down and you find the next page, and you find the next page, and you find the next page. And the list is really big. And if you don't know what they are, or don't know what you should be using, it can be quite complicated, particularly if you're a content editor, which is where I'm kind of seeing shortcodes more useful. So the idea with applying the concept of a category is that in the HTML, in the field, when we say we want shortcodes, we get to say that we want shortcodes that are HTML content related shortcodes, rather than potentially we might also have, say, localization shortcodes for helpers there, or just text content, or other helpers that may not necessarily want to be used in an HTML editor, but would get used in other places. So that is that's pretty much the demo. That's what we've got at the moment. There's still a few more features to add, and this was just something I was looking at for JP, because he'd like to use some of them for localization, which means we need to raise the question of whether or not we would also process shortcodes in things like text fields. At the moment, we're just processing them in HTML fields, because they are the only ones that require the image shortcode, which was the first one that we introduced. So that's the demo. I shall hand it back.